Well, hello again, and welcome to our last unit of this subject. Okay, I hope you have in your mind all the grammar that we have been studying. This is the last unit, and you are arriving to the end. So you have a final presentation, you have the exam, but that's all. Okay, in this last unit is the conditionals. This is one of the topics that you study when you are at school. The reported speech, the modal, the passive, and the conditionals. They are the typical things that you study at school. And sometimes it's a bit difficult, especially the third conditional. Do you remember the conditionals? Well, you will tell me in our face-to-face class or video class. The conditional sentence is, well, you know, there is a condition, okay? If you do something, something happens, okay? And it's divided into two clauses, as you can see here. Clause is a small sentence with a subject and a verb and an object. So you have to remember this. You have to have this in your mind, because if sentence, if clause is one, and the conditional one is another one. So you don't make mistakes if you have the things clear, one and one clause. So if clause, for example, have some rules, and the conditional clause have some rules. There are different types of conditional, as you know. Type 0, type 1, 2, and 3. Okay, many years ago, teachers or grammar researchers didn't say zero conditional. It was the first conditional was present and future, but the zero conditional is when both of them have a present simple. If I'm present in the conditional, well, the second clause, okay? And when do you use these types of conditional? When it's a general truth. It's a general truth or scientific fact. For example, if water reaches 100 degrees, it always boils. If I eat peanuts, I am sick because, for example, I am allergic, okay? If people eat too much, they get fat. So there are two present. This is a zero conditional. Conditional type 1. This is when if must plus present and will in the other clause. Remember something very important, and I will repeat along the explanation. With the sentence if, or the clause if, you cannot put another modal or any other conditional. You cannot say if I will, if I would. Si yo fuera, if I would. No, okay? Never. So with if, it's a present, the past perfect, the present perfect, but never a conditional or never a modal. If it rains, is a clause, I won't go to the park, or if I study, I'll go to the party tonight, okay? You have more examples here. I lend you War and Peace if I have finished before, so it's present and future, present perfect and future perfect. Well, here is a difference, but it's logical. We don't need too much explanation. That one zero conditional, if you sit in the sun for a long time, you get burned. If you sit in the sun this morning, you will get burned. Okay, remember that with present and present was a scientific truth or general truth, and in this one is a condition. If you do this, you will get burned. Okay, so this is a slight difference of meaning. I hope you see it. Okay, it's not always formed the conditional with if. You can form the conditional with unless. Unless in Spanish means a menos que. But if you think about it, it's a substitution of if, okay? For example, I'll go home soon if the film doesn't start. I'll go home soon unless the film starts, okay? It's the same if you put if or if you put unless. But it's important to know that because sometimes you can see in an exercise or in an exam conditional started with unless, and you don't know if it's a conditional or not. So if you see unless, it means it's a conditional. apart from unless, you have providing that on condition that, as long as, so there are all substitutions of if, okay? You can play in the living room as long as, or only if you don't make a mess, or providing you don't make a mess, or on condition that you don't make a mess. So it's the same. So pay attention to these expressions that you are seeing now, provided that, okay, that they are conditional. So if you have a transformation of a sentence in the exam with starting with providing that, is a conditional. Another way of forming the conditional is this one, or otherwise. You've got to start studying, or you will fail all the exams. So it's a conditional. We'd better send it express, otherwise I'll take the days. If you transform that into a conditional with if, how would you do it? You've got to start studying. If not, you will fail. You would better send it express. If not, if we don't do it, it will take days. Okay, so it's a conditional too. More expressions for the conditional. Suppose, supposing that, or imagine. It's strange, but it's that way. Supposing my boss doesn't let me go on holidays on the day I won't be able to attend. You can substitute it by if my boss doesn't let me to go. Just suppose it didn't rain for 4 months. Would we have enough water? If it didn't rain for 4 months, we wouldn't have enough water, okay? Imagine, so it's the same. If so, or if not. According to the weather forecast, it might rain tomorrow. If so if it rains, we'll go hiking another day, yes? Well, these were conditional 1 and some expressions that you can find in conditional 1, conditional 2, and conditional 3. Now we are going to see conditional 2. Of course, when you see this video class, you can go back or stop and repeat. This is the good thing of having the classes recorded, that you can have time to see the class many times, or any slide. If you don't understand, you repeat it, and if you don't, you ask me. Type 2. The conditional of type 2, it's if with a past, and the other clause is would. Don't confuse this, that I told you. If with a past simple, and would is the other clause, okay? For example, to talk about things that in the future that are probably not going to be true, so it's a possibility that happens. If I won the lottery, I would buy a big house. If I met the Queen of England, I would say hello, okay? Remember something. You say if you won the lottery, but in English it's not gané, it's ganara, okay? In Spanish it's ganara, but it's a subjunctive. Subjunctive doesn't exist. So you have to put always the past. Past, conditional. Past and conditional. If I met, si yo conociera, no si yo conocí. Remember that it could change the order, so don't confuse it. She would travel all over the world if she were rich. She would pass exam if she ever studied. As you can see here, were rich. But originally the past tense of the verb to be is was. But with the conditionals, it's the only way when you can put I were. Do you remember that song, If I Were a Rich Man? Okay, if I were. Or when you want to give an advice, if I were you. It's very strange because it's I were. But it's an exception that you can use were with I or we. Or she, sorry. Let's see the example. Advices, if I were you, I wouldn't go out with that man. We will practice directly next day in the class with these sentences. I'm going to put some sentences, so you have to change it or you have to finish. Do you know that sometimes in our class, video class, I put a sentence in and you have to write in the chat. We will practice with this next day. Okay? So if I were you, for example, this is when you want to give an advice to someone. If si yo fuera tú, if I were you. Now your question is, can I say I was you? Yes, it's not completely wrong, but it's much more used if I were. Okay, we have a comparison here between the second conditional and the first conditional. Okay, the second conditional is different from the first one because it's more unlikely to happen. It's menos probable que pase. Okay, if I had enough money, I could buy a house. So it's a wish you have. If I were you, but I'm not you. Okay. But in the first, there are more probability that this happens. If I have enough money at the end of the month, I will buy a present for you. So it's more probable that I have money. Okay. If she studies harder, she will pass. If she studied harder, she would pass the exam. So it's very unlikely. So she won't pass. So it's something that you wish. She estudiara, but you know that she's not going to pass the exam. And now we arrive to the last one. It's type 3 conditional. Listen, this type 3 is a bit more complicated because it's compound. The verbs are double, are compounds in the if clause and in the conditional clause. I call it the impossible conditional. Why? Because it never happened. It's like if you think in Spanish, for example, si yo hubiera hecho, but I didn't do it. If I had done, if I had closed the door, I would have done. So this is very common in English spoken people because they say, si hubiera hecho eso, so if I had, I could have. It's so common that people, British people and native people don't say would have. They say good off. And sometimes they confuse it and they put good off, okay? So this is, remember, this is impossible one because it's something that you regret sometimes. The structure is if with a past perfect, for example, had done, had go, had, remember, past perfect had, but always with if, and the compound conditional. Okay. For example, if she had studied, she would have passed the exam. But now she didn't study and she didn't pass the exam. Okay, so remember something. Hubiera, habría. So sometimes people say, thanks to the English third conditional, I know the verb in Spanish. Because you hear some people saying, si yo hubiera ido. No, si yo hubiera, habría. So if I had studied, she would have passed the exam. It can be solved now. If I hadn't eaten so much, I wouldn't have felt sick. Okay? So the no conditional would feel, I am sick, for example. If I put a sentence, I am sick because I ate very much. And I tell you, transform it into third conditional. Okay, so if I hadn't eaten so much, I wouldn't have felt sick. The other one, for example, if we had taken a taxi, we wouldn't have missed the plane. Imagine that my exercise is, I missed the plane because I didn't take a taxi. Okay, so the third conditional should be, if we had taken a taxi, we wouldn't have missed the plane. And this is the exercise you are going to upload to Blackboard next day. Pay attention. You are going to write a sentence like the one I said, for example, I missed the plane because I didn't take a taxi. I was sick because I ate too much. Or I was lost because I didn't ask, okay? You are going to write 3 sentences and you are going to transform them into the third conditional. I hope you understand. I repeat. You have to transform, to write 3 sentences and you have to transform them into the third conditional. For example, I repeat, I missed a plane because I didn't take a taxi. I was ill because I ate too much. And below these ones, you are going to write the third conditional. If I had, okay, so in total 6 sentences, 3 normal and 3 conditional related to these 3 normal ones. And I will open the activity for these sentences. I hope you have understood, and if you didn't, please ask me in our video class. Thank you very much and good luck.